Okay, so now we want to get to those latest inflation numbers. The rate of price increases for the goods and services we buy is continuing to slow. As we mentioned, the CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong is here now to break all of this down for us. Okay, so give us the good news, maybe? Is there something?
Listen, I see lots of good news in this, Arthur. It is, when you think about the trend we've been on, right? Like, how many times have you and I sat here and talked about prices up at 8.1%, then 7%, then 6% and 5%. Now it's 4.3%. It might not feel like it when you're out buying stuff and saying, man, prices are still higher, because they are. They are still increasing. They're just increasing at a more manageable, slower rate. 4.3% is really good progress. A lot of that's being driven by gasoline. Anybody who's driving their car knows that prices for gas are a lot lower than they were this time last year. But that trend we've been seeing, if you look at the 3-month or the 6-month, everything's pointing in this positive direction where we're seeing real progress in the fight against inflation. It's interesting, though, as we get closer to an inflection point, as we get closer to getting those under control, you've got interest rates that were brought in to try to get inflation under control. Now one of the biggest drivers of inflation, a 26.4% increase in mortgage costs, the largest yearly increase we've ever seen in this country. The big one, though, is food, tying into what Anise was talking about. Grocery prices were at 10.6%. They've come down, but they've come down to what, like 9.7%. So moving in the right direction, but still a lot of work to be done here.
Yes, and not fast enough for the average Canadian, that is for sure. No. So, you were talking about the latest economic numbers. There is some positivity there, but let's also talk about the GDP, how it grew in China, for example. Yeah. So let's talk about the impact that's having.
Well, it's an interesting story, right? And it's similar to what we're seeing here. Everybody thought the global economy was going to slow in the first quarter of this year. Everybody thought the Canadian economy was going to slow in the first quarter of this year. The Canadian economy did way better than expected and is going to continue to do better than expected, which makes us wonder what's going to happen with these sort of downturn forecasts that we have. Same thing happening in China. China's growth came in at like 4.5%, which is really solid for us, not so good for them. That rate of increase that we're seeing in China is beginning to slow. We're beginning to see demographic problems come home to roost. We're beginning to see, problems with the underlying sort of fundamentals of the Chinese economy. But 4.5% growth, it tells us that the global economy is going through the same thing we are, that there is some solid rebound happening, but the question remains, are we pushing that recession forecast further down the road, or are we pushing it off the table entirely? We're just going to have to wait to get more data on it.
We're going to have to wait off the table or maybe down the calendar. Thanks for this, Peter. Peter Armstrong reporting for us.